Can everybody see the picture of the guy with the magnifying glass, I hope?
Yes.
Yeah, my little detective man. This week's discussion is also a series of puzzles, but these puzzles are nothing at all like the dropped card puzzles that we did last time. They involve the play of the hand, and you can do the same thing on defense. This is not combined just to declare a play. You can use these same techniques when you're defending. But what I've done is I've posed some hands, and in each one of them, the declarer needs to figure something out. And the clues are there if you just know how to look for them, how to remember them, and what's happened at the table so far. So lots of times these kinds of questions involve finding a queen. Very often you'll look at your hand, and you're in a game contract, say a major suit game contract, and you can see three losers that you can't avoid. But then you have a side suit, or maybe it's the trump suit, where you need to find the queen in order to make the contract. Many times you look at it and you think, well, this is a guess because I have the ace jack in one hand and the king 10 in the other. I could take the finesse either way. How in the world am I going to figure out which way I should do it? Is it a guess? Sometimes it boils down to a guess because you have no time. For instance, say you're already booked. You've lost all the tricks you can lose. You can't necessarily give up a trick by way of a discovery play to try to figure out who has a certain honor because you're already booked. So you have to sit and think about who's played what cards, what happened in the bidding, and what inferences I can draw from that. So I know that when I'm playing at fun and games, it seems to me that a lot of the really good players just seem to be able to find queens. At least they seem to have a lot more success than I do. And at first I thought, well, this is just years of experience. Well, that's part of it. But the other part of it is that they are paying attention to what cards you've shown up with in your hand. They are paying attention to the bidding. Did you overcall? Did you bid? Those kinds of things. And how many points can I attribute to your hand already? So this first example is a hand I found that I thought was very interesting because it illustrates this point of finding a queen in a side suit. And the suit involves cards that would enable you to take the finesse either way. So what are you going to do? East is the dealer, and he passes, and then South opens one spade. His partner bids the Jacoby force and raise. He has 4 card support, a hand that has opening values in it, and it's balanced, although you could use Jacoby 2 no trump with an unbalanced hand if you prefer not to play splinters. Some people think that splinter bids give away too much information to the opponents, and they do crowd the auction. So Jacoby 2 no trump doesn't always promise a balanced hand, but many times it is a balanced hand. So after his partner uses that bid, South looks at his hand and says, I'm a minimum opener and I have no shortness to show here. I don't have shortness. I don't have a second 5 card suit. I'm a minimum opener. I don't have a 6 spade. None of these rebids that opener has available to him can be used on this hand. So that is an indication that I just need to bid game and go on. And then if partner has more than a minimum, he's free to proceed on if he wants to. But I just have the minimum, so I rebid 4 spades. And then everybody passes, and West puts the jack of diamonds on the table. Wouldn't you know, we have a hanging king. Isn't it amazing how often the opponents seem to they're like sharks. They can smell blood in the water. And very often they'll put down a card that traps an honor that you have. Well, we're going to assume, for the sake of argument, that West is a competent defender and did not underlead the ace of diamonds. Remember how I have talked and talked and talked and said never lead a low card from a suit headed by the ace against a suit contract? We're going to make this assumption here that the ace of diamonds is in the east hand. I think we can safely assume that the queen of diamonds is also in the east hand because West led the jack. We know he doesn't have the king, so it couldn't have been a lead from king jack 10. So just from looking at the opening lead, I'm 99% certain that East has the ace queen of diamonds. So I'm not going to cover. There's no reason to cover. The lead of the jack promises the 10 as well. So I have absolutely no reason to think that playing the king will do anything for me. So I will play low on the first trick, and West jack holds it. Then he follows up with another diamond. I play low again, and East wins the queen. Then he tries to cash the ace, but I'm going to trump that. So I've lost 2 diamond tricks. I have the potential to lose a spade trick, and I have the potential to lose a heart trick. There was no bidding from the opponent, so I have no clues that way. So I'm in danger of losing a club. I may lose a club here. In particular, I may lose the trump queen and the heart king. So after I've ruffed, I have 9 trumps, and I'm going to follow the 8 ever, 9 never rule. I'm just going to play off the ace and king of spades because I'm a slight favorite to drop the queen doubleton here, even though when you have 4 of them outstanding, there's an increased percentage for having them break 3-1 rather than 2-2. But missing the queen, it is usually right to play off the ace and king. And sure enough, when I play the ace and king, I drop the queen of spades from the east hand. Yay, there went one possible loser that I don't have to worry about. Now, next thing, because I have the jack and 10 in my hand, if I can win a heart finesse, then I'm home free. So my next step, after I have played off the ace and king of trumps, drawing all of them, is to lead the heart jack from my hand. And lo and behold, East takes it. Well, now I'm booked. Now, what am I going to do? And I think that I made a mistake on this hand. In fact, I'm virtually certain I did. Instead of having 4 hearts, supposed to have 3 hearts and 3 clubs here. I don't know. I must have been asleep when I was typing this hand up. But I should have 3 clubs in each hand, and I should not have the 2 of hearts here. So I absolutely have to find the queen of clubs, or my contract is going set. Did any of you figure this out without looking at the answer? If you did, you get a gold star in your teaching next week. But let's think about what's happened. Did East bid? He did not, did he? He was the dealer, and he passed. What have we seen from him so far? We have seen the ace and queen of diamonds. That's 6 points. We've seen the king of hearts. That makes 9 points. And we've seen the queen of spades. That makes 11 high card points, doesn't it? Don't you think if he had the queen of clubs in his hand, he'd have opened the bidding? I do. So unless he made a mistake and miscounted his points, or maybe he thinks he should devalue his hand because he has queen doubleton of spades, I'm going to play West for the queen of clubs. That may or may not be right because there are no guarantees. There are some players out there who don't open 12-point hands, but we know of 11 points from the east hand. So odds do not favor his having the queen of clubs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lead low to the 10 of clubs and cross my fingers and hope that it wins. Now, if when East wins the King of Hearts, he returns a club, my worries are over. This is why I'm constantly saying to you, don't break new suits for the declarer. Just return a suit that has already been played. So when East wins the King of Hearts, he should return another heart. He doesn't have any more trumps, and he doesn't want to break clubs. And he knows that leading a diamond will give declarer a rough and a slough, so he could pitch one of those clubs. So the answer here is he should return a heart. This is a perfect example of passive defense. If he breaks that club suit for the declarer makes his contract going away. We've eliminated the guesswork. He can kind of figure that out because North and South are in a game contract. And remember, he has 11 high card points in his hand. How many points can his partner possibly have? In general, he will have only 2 or 3 points. We haven't seen anything from him in hearts. We saw only the Jack of Diamonds that he led. He had only small trumps. So if he has anything, it has to be in the club suit. All of this argues for East just to return a heart and not break a new suit. So if you have reasoned correctly here, you'll make the contract. But if you're falling back on a guess, you have a 50% shot. But if you think about it and figure out how the cards have to lie around the table, then you're miles ahead of the game. In this case, I think it's not a guess at all. I think West has to hold the Queen of Clubs. And if he doesn't, and for some reason East didn't open, well, I got fixed. You know, maybe he miscounted his points and he passed when he should have bid. That kind of stuff happens, but not very often. So even though that could have happened, I'm not going to go with that assumption. I'm going to lead toward the 10 of clubs and hope that it holds. Okay. Anybody have any questions about that one? Does everybody understand the logic and how you figure it out? Is that easy to do at the table? Absolutely not. If this were easy, everybody would play like this, right? It's not. Everybody has to work at it and learn how to think about these things. So here's another example. Following 2 passes, South opens 1 spade and his partner jumps directly to 4 spades preemptively. Perfect hand for it. 5 card support, a singleton, and he only has 6 high card points. We strongly suspect that the opponents have a heart fit. East is trying really hard to make sure that there's no room for them to come in the second round of bidding and find that fit and maybe outbid them for the contract. He just jumps directly to the game, and now West leads the heart 6. Okay, dummy comes down and declarer says, well, hey, I don't have any trump losers. That's a good thing. And I have a singleton heart, so I have only 1 heart loser here because I can rough out my other 2. There are certainly plenty of trumps in the dummy for doing that, aren't there? Looks like I have 2 club losers. Absolutely unavoidable. That makes my book. So once again, here we have a suit that has the possibility of a 2-way finesse. Which way am I going to play? There was no bidding. West led a low heart. East wins the king, and he fires back a trump. Now, declarer should stop for a minute here and think. We know that East has the ace of hearts. How do we know that?
He wouldn't have led away from that ace, would he?
Well, he shouldn't. He shouldn't. So we should say that East has the heart ace. And he played the king on the first trick. He is playing third hand. Remember, when you lead the top. When you're winning the trick, you play the lowest card of equals. The lower card of equals in this case, because there are 2 of them. So we can give the ace of hearts to East. Now he returned to trump because he looked at the dummy and he said, "Well, I can see that we're not going to win a trump trick. That's a nice passive return." He doesn't have any idea from his partner's lead whether his partner might have the queen or not, but he's not going to lead another heart because the dummy is now void and can ruff. So another assumption we can make is that West cannot have the top two club honors. How can we make that assumption? Why can we make that assumption?
He would have let it.
Exactly. If you have the ace king of clubs in your hand and you have maybe jack third or fourth of hearts, which one are you going to choose for your opening lead? Folks, God gave us aces and kings together so we'd know what to lead, right? So if you have that holding, you would lead the ace of clubs. So we got to figure that the club honors are split. They're either split or East has both of them. Well, if East has the ace and king of hearts and the ace and king of clubs, he's not going to sit there quietly, is he? By the time the bidding gets back around to him, oh, goodness sakes, I didn't put four spades in the north there. Yeah, it should, instead of under East, it should be under North. By the time the bidding gets back around to him, he's not going to bid anyway. But it's highly unlikely that he has 14 high card points in his hand. If he did, he knows that South's four spade bid is preemptive. He might have taken some action holding 14 high card points. So because West didn't lead the ace of clubs, we're going to assign split honors. When honors are not led, generally they're split. So East has the king or the ace, and West has the king or the ace. Now, if he had the king, he might have chosen to underlead the king of clubs. But if he had the ace, he would never do that. So if I'm thinking about it, I'm kind of thinking, well, odds are pretty good that West has the ace of clubs. It really doesn't matter a whole lot on my holding. I'm just going to lose two club tricks because there's nothing I can do about it. I have nothing but trash in the suit. So I have to lose those two cards. So what can I do to make sure that my assumptions are correct here? What I have to do is figure out who has the queen of diamonds. And I need to make sure that my assumptions about the club suit are correct. So what do I need to do? What I need to do is give up club tricks. I'm going to lose them anyway. No way around it. And when that happens, I'll get an idea of who has which honor. I know that East has the ace and king of hearts. If he has one of the club honors, the ace or the king, that will give him 10 points. If he also has the queen of diamonds, guess what? He'd have an opening hand, wouldn't he? He would not have passed at his first turn. So I need to figure out, or I need to make sure that my assumptions about the club suit are right. The way I do that is by leading the suit. This is called a discovery play. I'm trying to discover how the club suit is laid out because that will help me in trying to figure out how to play the diamonds. So when I lead the clubs, it turns out that indeed West has the ace of clubs and East has the king of clubs. Okay, now East has 10 high card points. If he also had the queen of diamonds, he'd have opened the bidding in something, probably one heart, but he did not. So once again, I'm going to bank on the fact that West has the queen of diamonds, and that's the way I'm going to play it. I'm going to lead low. Eventually they're going to have to give me the lead back. If somebody is so nice as to lead a diamond, that would be just fine with me because then I don't have to guess at all. I can just play low from the second hand and let that lead right around to the hand that will play last to the trick. And maybe one of the defenders has finessed his partner and his partners had to play the queen of diamonds. Or maybe he led away from the queen of diamonds. Then I take a trick with a low card, a jack or a 10. Maybe he returns a heart. I'll rough it. That's okay. That doesn't bother me at all. If he tries to play a third club, I can rough it in my hand. So his only recourse really is to lead either a heart or a club and make me rough one of those and play the diamonds myself. So I find out from the play of the club suit that East has the club king and West the club ace. I can now account for 10 points in the East hand. He cannot possibly have the diamond queen. So I'm going to lead low to the 10 of diamonds in the virtual certainty that it will hold the trick. This is just thinking about the opening lead, the fact that East won with the king of hearts, and we're making the assumption that West is a competent defender and did not underlead the ace. That may be incorrect in some instances, but most of the time it will be true. So there are 7 points. We made a discovery play in clubs, finding out that East also had the king of clubs. It would be extremely unusual for West to have led a low heart holding the ace and king of clubs. A ranked beginning player might have done that, but none of you guys are ranked beginners. None of you are. So I think that you can make that assumption most of the time and assume that it is accurate, because these are the rules that we use when we're playing. So in this case, once again, I'm saying West has the missing queen. But it could just as well be the other way if North happened to be declaring the hand and East led a small heart. It's not always going to be West that holds these missing cards. It just happens to be the case in these first 2 examples.
Susan, quick question about the auction.
Sure.
South could have opened light.
He might
in
have.
third seat.
He might have. That is a matter of partnership agreement. When you bid game preemptively, you don't always expect to make it. Even if South opened light in the third seat, I've got to wonder why West didn't overcall. If there are 2 passes to South and he opened light, why didn't West bid? He's got to have a good hand. 2 passes followed by a light opening. He's got to have something. So why didn't he double? Why didn't he bid 2 of something? It makes sense to me, especially with the amount of competitive bidding that there is around, that if that's the case, West most certainly would have bid. But even if everybody's got, both defenders have 9 or 10 points between them and don't have a 5-card suit, don't have a reason that they want to overcall, then I'm still going to bid 4 spades preemptively, not because I expect it to make, but because I know that we don't have more than half the points in the deck. That means that the hand probably belongs to the opponents in a lower ranking suit, maybe a part score. If I give them room to find their part score contract, that's not any good. I don't want to allow them to have that room. North doesn't bid 4 spades expecting to make. In this case, it happens that it can make because he has that key heart singleton. And this brings me to another point. Notice the vulnerability. North and South are vulnerable. If you're North and you're contemplating making that preemptive jump to game and you're vulnerable and the opponents are not, make sure you have a singleton in your hand. Because most experienced opponents will know what you're doing and they're going to pull out the red card. So have a singleton if you're vulnerable when you do this. That will help you limit the losses. If you go down 200 points and the opponents had a 420 in a non-vulnerable game or a 400 in no trump, then that's okay. But you don't want to go down 500 when they only had 400. That's a bad deal. So this hand, even though it has only 6 high card points in it, it has the requisite number of spades and it has a singleton. If that had been a double to the heart and I'd had 3 clubs, I might have raised only to 3 spades. I'm still going to jump raise, but I'm not going to jump directly to game when we're vulnerable and my hand doesn't have enough shape to satisfy me. Is this making sense to everybody? Okay. Not easy at the table, is it? Mm. All right. Here's another one. Once again, we have 2 passes to south, and he opens the bidding 1 spade. His partner jumps to 3 spades. Notice, he has a hand that's easily a limit raise, doesn't he? Now, he could bid 4 spades, but I've shown this option to remind you that if you use Drury, then having a hand that is a limit raise in the spade suit can be shown by bidding 2 clubs, saying, I have a limit raise for you, partner. Did you open light, or do you really have something over there? And then that allows your partner, when your partner bids another suit, says, I have a full opening hand. If he just repeats his suit, it says, I opened light. We need to stop at 2. So when you have that kind of hand, the previous hand had only 6 high card points in it and a singleton. That's not enough for a limit raise. This hand is a genuine limit raise. So he can use Drury if you and your partner use it, or he can jump to 3 spades. The jump to 3 spades may be too high, though, if partner opened with 8 points. It is perfectly permissible to open with 8 points in the 3rd seat. I wouldn't go any lower than that. You have to be within an ace of a normal opening bid. So that means you need to have 8 points. Any lower than that, and you're asking to get the director called on you. And the director may have something to say about it. But if you use Drury, 2 clubs would be the appropriate bid here. South would probably bid 2 diamonds. For lack of anything better, the bid is artificial. All it says is, I have an opening hand. And then they'll get to the spade game the same as these folks did. Now, West leads the Jack of diamonds. East overtakes it with the Queen and plays the Ace of diamonds. Dummy is now void. He looks at the dummy. Always a good idea when you have to lead, again, is to turn your head 90 degrees to the right and look at the dummy. And he leads the dreaded heart. Which one are you going to play? You've lost 2 diamond tricks. If you don't get the hearts right, you're going to lose 2 heart tricks, aren't you? So, what are you going to do? First, you need to make a couple of assumptions. In order to make this bid, East absolutely has to have the king of clubs. So I'm going to give East the king of clubs, because if I have to have the cards lie in a certain position to make the bid, I'm going to assume that's the way they lie. Because to do otherwise means I'm giving up. I have to assume that East has the king of clubs. This time, I don't have the luxury of a discovery play like I used in determining how the club honors lay in the last hand. All he knows about the East hand is that East didn't open the bidding. So far, he's seen the Ace and Queen of diamonds, and we've given him the club king because he has to hold that for us to be able to make the bid. So, what do we think? We've seen 6 points in diamonds, and we're giving him the club queen for 9, or club king for 9. If he also has the heart ace, he'd have opened the bidding, wouldn't he? Sometimes you have to think about what various holdings would have meant for an opponent when you're doing this. So if he'd held the heart ace, that'd have given him enough to have opened the bidding, and he could not. So it seems very unlikely that he has the ace of hearts. It seems more likely that West has it. In general, when you have two missing honors like this, they are split. So I'm going to take a deep breath and I'm going to play the Jack of Hearts, hoping that forces the ace. If it turns out that my assumptions are wrong, that West has the King of Clubs and that East has the Ace of Hearts instead, then I'm never making the bid anyway. So I have to figure out what is the one way I have a chance to make this bid. I need for the cards to lie exactly as I described. We know East had the Ace and Queen of Diamonds. We need for him to have the King of Clubs. He cannot also have the Ace of Hearts and have passed at his first turn to bid. So I'm going to say that this is the way the cards have to lie for me to make this bid, so I'm playing the Jack. Sometimes this works and sometimes it doesn't. I would be foolish and just outright wrong if I told you that this works every time. But when you can figure out a way for the cards to lie, for you to be able to make the bid, no matter how ridiculous it seems, go for it. There's no point in pursuing a losing line of play. When you know you have a way for you to win and make your contract, go for it. And if it doesn't work, what should you do? Play the next hand. That's the nature of this game. So, happily in this instance, because this is a lesson hand, West had the Ace of Hearts, and I hold my heart losers to 1, and East indeed has the King of Clubs, and I end up making the bid. That's because this is a lesson hand. But this was drawn from a game, from an actual game. This is not an easy game to make, even though it's an opening hand opposite a limit raise with 10 trump between the two hands. The defenders did well to lead a heart at the third trick. When you can put Declarer on a guess, you have to hope that he's not going to sit there and think and figure all this out. If he's on a guess, the odds are at least 50-50 he's going to make the wrong choice, isn't it? But if he sits and thinks, then he may have a better chance. Does anybody have any questions before we go on to the next one? Told you these were harder than the drop card puzzles, didn't I?
Susie,
Okay. Yes.
this would be so much easier to figure out at the table if you gave us an extra 5 minutes of time and we could write it all down
I
and figure it out.
I understand completely because I find myself sitting there thinking, let me see. I can't remember exactly how the bidding went, or I can't remember the card that was played on the third trick. Who had that card? I understand, Roy, but understand your frustration because I often feel the pressure of time myself. But half of this is getting in the habit of thinking about the first part of it and developing the habit of sitting there and thinking as declarer about what the opening lead means and think about how it relates to the bidding. A lot of people don't even do that much, Roy. And if you can develop that habit along with doing your number rule as a defender, you will have a decent idea about whether you have a chance to defeat the declarer. And while declarer is making his plan, the defender should be making theirs. And the thing for declarer to do, and I heard this from somebody right when I first began playing, saying, take 3 or 4 minutes to make your plan as declarer after the opening lead. After you have your plan made, you can play the hand in under a minute. And if something doesn't go quite the way you thought it would, then you need to have a plan B in the back of your head that you can implement in case plan A doesn't work out. But it often works out much, much better to take the bulk of the time you have for the hand after the bidding is over to think after the opening lead is made, or even leave yourself a little bit of time to think about how to proceed after the second or the third trick. The stopping and thinking takes time, but you can play the hand pretty rapidly if you have taken the time to make your plan and work it out. I know the time constraints are difficult. I do, because I contend with them as well. And nobody ever said this was easy, least of all me. I'm still working on this really hard. Some days I can figure it out, and other days I'm just a goner. I can't figure out anything.
There's a question from Janet. Yeah.
Hi, Janet. Go right ahead.
Well, in the chat box, Susie asked if Drury was alertable. I was not aware of that. So if I say one spade and my partner says in third seat, and my partner comes back and says clubs, I'm to alert that?
If you play Drury, yes, because it's not a real club suit.
I see. Okay.
It is not natural. You've got to alert it with
All right.
exceptions.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Here we have another one. This is another fun example, I think. You guys are going to be mentally fatigued here. East opens this hand with a diamond preempt. Look at that south hand. Way too good for a simple overcall, isn't it? This is a very, very powerful hand. If I'm holding this hand, I want to open 2 clubs with it. I mean, after all, it's a 2-loser hand. I'm looking at 11 tricks in my own hand. So if I'm left to my own devices, I want to start out with 2 clubs. But he's very rudely preempted in front of me. So since I'm way too strong for a simple overcall, I start with a double. I am way too strong for any number of spades. Start with a double. West passes and North says, 3 no trump. He has some values. He has 10 high card points. He has a stopper and diamonds. Pretty good, huh? And South says, I was only kidding. 6 spades. I didn't really want to use a takeout double. I didn't intend to support your suit or anything else like that. I have a big old hand with spades over here. And since you have enough to bid 3 no trump over 3 diamonds, I think that we have enough for slam. I don't need for a partner to have much at all to have 6 spades, do I? He has said he has a diamond stopper. Well, it can only be the king because I have the ace. I don't know what else he has. His other values have to be in clubs because I've got everything else. If he's got the ace of spades, I'm probably going to make 7. But I don't, 4 no trump over 3 no trump is quantitative because, so I have no way to find out whether my partner has the ace of spades. This is one case where you just have to bid what you think you can make. And it looks pretty good, doesn't it? Now, West leads the 2 of diamonds, and I have said this is an obvious singleton. How do I know it's a singleton?
Count the cards.
That's right. Count the cards. East opened with 3 diamonds, and let's assign 7 of them to him. There are 5 of them between my hand and the dummy. That makes 12. So that 2 of diamonds has to be the only diamond in West's hand.
South has a 2 of diamonds.
All right. Let's make it the 3 of diamonds that's led. Yes, you're correct. Let's make it the 3 of diamonds that was led here. Just scratch that out, and I'll change this here in a minute. There we go.
Susan, if East did not have a diamond stopper, he would not bid 3 no trump just on his point count.
That's right. He would not. If he doesn't, because bidding 3 no trump says I have a diamond stop.
Okay, so otherwise he'd come back.
He'd probably come back
4 spades, 4 clubs. What would he come back?
Yeah,
if he did not have a diamond stopper.
Back 4 clubs, because he's got a 4-3-3-3 hand or a 3-3-3-4 hand, more correctly. So his bid would be 3 clubs. Well, South doesn't care what he bids. Just wants to keep the bidding open so he can bid 6 spades here, because he has lost the opportunity to find out exactly what his partner has here. When he bids 3 no trump, though,
he does have a diamond stop for 3 no trump.
Diamond stop, and since I have the ace and a little one, I'm thinking, okay, there went that loser. So I'm 99% certain here that I'm going to make 6 spades. But then that opening lead comes down, and I see the dummy, and I think, Oh, yuck. What am I going to do? I have to lose the trump ace. And unless West has it, a diamond's going to come back and it's going to get roughed. If he has one left, I have the possibility of losing the trump ace and a diamond rough here. We don't have very many spades outstanding. There are only 3. But since East has 7 diamonds in his hand, it's entirely possible that he's void in spades, isn't it? And certainly the odds favor that he will have only 1 or 2 of them. So that means that West is much more likely to have 2 or 3 spades than East is. That means that he's likely to have the ace of spades, but I don't know that for sure. After all, East's preempt came on a suit headed only by the queen jack at best. So what am I going to do to avoid losing the trump ace and a diamond rough? What do you think? Does anybody see the answer?
I have.
I do.
What?
Yeah, lead the ace of clubs and
That's right. And pitch that diamond, or pitch the diamond ace. Win the trick on the board with the diamond king. Lead the ace of clubs and pitch that ace of diamonds. That ace of diamonds is a liability, not an asset. Do that, then you can lead a spade and anybody can take the spade ace and your contract is safe. Sometimes what you think is an asset is a liability. So it becomes really important to be able to see that, hey, I can lead the ace of clubs and get rid of this other ace of diamonds. I don't want this ace of diamonds in my hands. That's not something that you automatically think about. Most of us want aces. We want to keep them. But in this instance, that ace of diamonds in Declare's hand is nothing but a big problem. But he has a way that he can get rid of it. If he will just win the trick on the board, that's critical, because the only way that he can get to the board is with the king of diamonds. That's the only way. If he falls asleep and wins the trick in his hand with the ace, it's all over. So he has to win the trick with the king, lead the ace of clubs to pitch the ace of diamonds, and his contract is safe. I think that's a pretty cool play myself, and one that you have to sit and think about for a minute before it becomes obvious. And you first have to recognize that that little diamond that West led is a singleton. You have to stop for a minute and count the diamonds to know that that's a singleton. So if East could very easily have the ace of spades and 7 diamonds headed by Queen Jack 10 and not have too many points to preempt. So don't make the assumption that the preemptor's partner probably has that ace. He may or he may not. About the time I make that assumption is when I go off in a contract. You just can't tell. But you can never go wrong leading the ace of clubs and pitching the ace of diamonds. You don't have to worry about luck. And all it takes is stopping for a minute to think about how many diamonds are in each hand, how many are in the dummy and declarer's hand. And so what does that mean about that lead? The defenders will be very disappointed when they don't get a diamond rough. Okay, this next one is an example of when you think you have everything under control, you need to stop and ask yourself, what could go wrong here? What could go wrong? I may be in a world of hurt, and I may not even know it. So it starts off with South as the dealer. He opens 1 spade. He's 5-5 in the major, so he opens the higher ranking one, doesn't he? North bids 1 no trump forcing. South now bids 2 hearts. The North says, well, that's interesting. I don't have 4 hearts and I don't have 3 spades. But I do have 11 or 12 high card points, and that means I can rebid 2 no trump. I don't have to take a preference back to spades. I have enough to bid no trump here. Well, South's not finished describing his hand. He rebids the hearts, saying, partner, I have 5 hearts and I have at least 5 spades. I may have 6, but I have at least 5 hearts. What do you think now? Is that better? And North says, well, yes, it is better. I'm happy to bid game and hearts here for you, partner. So the opening lead is the Jack of clubs. And the declarer stops to take stock. He says, well, looks like I have a possible spade loser. Shouldn't have any heart losers. I have 2 diamond losers, absolutely. There's no way I can get around it. And my partner very thoughtfully had the ace of clubs, so I have no club losers. So I have the possibility of losing 1 spade and 2 diamonds. What could be wrong with that? What might happen? Does anybody have a thought about what might go wrong? What does South need to do? Does he have enough trumps in the north hand to rough out all of his losing spades? He doesn't, does he? He only has 3 trumps in the dummy. Now, he might use some of them, but that's not going to get rid. He has 2 spades in the dummy, so he's going to have to lose a trick to the king of spades unless it's on side, right? And there's the other little thing that we need to think about, and that is, how are the outstanding spades divided here? I would like to make the assumption that they're 3-3. I mean, that would make my life easy for me. Even if I lose the king of spades, I will be able to draw all of the outstanding spade tricks and still make my bid. But what if the spades are not 3-3? Does anybody know the percentage for the amount of time that 6 outstanding trumps are 3-3? If you don't, it's only 36%. That's less than a 50-50 shot, isn't it? When you're missing 6, they are more likely divided 4-2. Sometimes they're even 5-1. I had a trump break yesterday that was 5-1 like that. It was terrible. I hated it. But what happens if they don't break evenly? If I try to draw the trumps first, even if they are 3-2, and then try to set up the spades, what's going to happen to me is that I'm going to find out that the spades don't break. Now, all of a sudden, I have no more trumps in the dummy, and I'm looking at losing spades. Not only am I going to lose the king, but I'm probably going to lose a trick to the 10 as well. And if they're divided really badly, then I may lose more than that even, because my 2 little cards are not very good. All the other spots are higher than my spot card. So he needs to win the club ace and take the spade finesse immediately. This is a time when you need to delay drawing trumps. And if you don't stop and think for a minute, that may never occur to you. We like to make the assumption that cards are going to break in our favor because sometimes they do. When you have 8 cards between you, they'll break 3-2, 62% of the time. But it's completely different when you have only 7. An outstanding 6-card suit breaks 3-3 only 36% of the time. Sometimes I tend to take an overly optimistic view and say, oh, well, if they're 3-3, I'm good. I don't have anything to worry about. Most of the time, they won't be 3-3. So after winning the ace of clubs, the declarer needs to take that spade finesse first. If it loses, he can win any return, and he still has trumps left in the dummy if he needs to take another spade trick and rough it out. He can rough it high if he needs to because he has ace, king, queen, jack, 10. He can afford to rough with the jack if he's worried about an over rough, because that will still give him the ace, king, queen, and 10 for drawing the opponent's trumps. But he has to make a move to get the spade suit set up before he gets rid of his trumps. That's one of the most important decisions that a declarer has to make is, do I draw trumps immediately, or is there other work I have to do first? It's relatively easy to see when you need to ruff a loser in the dummy, but sometimes it's much harder to see when you need to set up a side suit first while you still have trumps available in the dummy to protect the suit that you're trying to set up. Does that make sense? This is a hard one to think of when you're sitting at the table. You have to be burned a few times by having the spades split badly, and you find yourself without any trumps left in the dummy, and here you started with 5 spades in your hand. And all of a sudden, the opponents have high enough spots that they're going to take 2 spade tricks. And all of a sudden, you're down in what you thought was an absolutely cold contract. What can go wrong on this hand is that the spades can break badly. If they don't break badly, you haven't lost anything by setting it up first. But it's when they do break badly that you have given yourself a big advantage in playing this hand. One more. North opens a club. South bids a spade. Isn't that a lovely suit? I know a lot of people don't like to bid suits like that, but you know, it is what it is. It's a 5-card spade suit, and I'm not going to bid one no trump here when I have especially 5 cards in the master suit here. So 1 spade is the correct response here, not 1 no trump. North rebids 1 no trump because he doesn't have 4 spades and has a very balanced hand. And now South says, well, guess what? I have 13 high card points and I have 5 spades. I wonder if my partner has 3 spades. I can use new minor forcing. So North opened a club, so that means the unbid minor is diamonds. So South bids 2 diamonds. His partner says, alert. He's asking me about my major suit holdings. And North says, guess what? My hand is good enough that I'm bidding 3 spades instead of 2 spades. I think that we need to be in game, if at all possible. Now, South bids 4 spades. He has an opening hand as well, doesn't he? So if he had just a limit raise in his hand, he would pass 3 spades. But he doesn't. He has an opening hand, and he says, well, good deal. We have enough for game between us. So I'm going to bid 4 spades. All right. Is this not the rattiest trump suit you've ever seen? It's not the one that you want to have, is it? You have to look at it and say, well, I'm losing 3 trump tricks. That's all there is to it. I'm losing 3 trump tricks. So that means I can't lose any other. And here we have this again. We have this ace jack in one hand, king 10 in the other. Don't make the assumption that you can't draw trumps when you don't have the trump honors. You can draw them. You're just not going to win any tricks. That's all. But it just means that your losers are in the trump suit instead of your side suit. So how can we make this hand? It looks like I have a potential heart loser to go along with 3 trump losers. And heavenly days, if somebody's holding ace, king, queen, jack of spades, I have 4 trump losers. But if that's the case, I can't make the hand. So I'm going on the assumption that that's not the way it exists. So the only thing that declarer needs is for these spades to break 3-2. That's all. If you look, a losing heart in the south hand, that's the long trump hand, that's where we count losers, can go away on the clubs in the dummy. So that heart loser is a phantom, isn't it? The only thing we have to do here is draw the trumps. That's all. We just have to get after it. If they're 4-1, oh well. If they're ace, king, queen, jack, if the 1 is the jack, that's okay. But if somebody has ace, king, queen, 10, we're still going to go off because we're missing the top 5 cards, all the trump honors. But the only thing we need is for them to be 3-2, and there'll be 3-2 62% of the time, right? Does the declarer need to do anything else first? Is he in a hurry to discard a heart loser? He's not, is he? Because he has the top 2 honors in the suit. He doesn't have to worry about having the opponents lead it and losing more tricks than he can afford. The only thing that's at the top of his list here is to get the trumps out. So that's the first thing he should do. Win whatever the opponents return and lead another trump. Win whatever they return and lead another trump. This is a draw the trumps hand, even though you have no trump honors. Scary situation. But if you're in game, that means you should have 26 points between you, and that your losers, instead of being in the side suits, are in the trump suit. It happens. Go.
Susie, a good indication that it's not 4-1 or that it is 3-2 is nobody doubled.
Well, yes, that's exactly right.
So
If they doubled holding the ace, king, queen, jack of trumps, surely they will double 4 spades. But stranger
Correct.
things happen, Roy.
That's true.
You know,
When you're speculating positive because they didn't double.
exactly. Well, and when you see that trump suit, you say no double, no trouble, right? Okay.
That's right.
That's, I think you guys are capable of reading this last one and figuring it out. If you can't, email me. But it's explained on the back page of the answers. There are 3 slides that are nothing but explanation. I get a little windy sometimes when I'm explaining. This is a hand that falls under the heading of what I was talking about earlier. Why didn't West lead a spade? How are the spades divided around the table? If you start from that, I think you'll be able to figure it out. I'm out of time this morning. Thanks for coming. Hi, this is Susan. Thanks for stopping by the Oklahoma Collective's YouTube channel. Basically, this channel shows recordings of our free 1-hour bridge lessons for advancing players that we offer every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Central Time. If you would like to join us, send your contact information to the email address shown on the screen, and we'll be happy to send you the link. If you would like to follow our channel and be notified when a new recording is uploaded, just click the Oklahoma Collective button below. Thanks for stopping by. Bye.